Hi, my name is Colin. I'm a microbiologist from Microbs and I'm here to show you how we do composting on a farm scale. So here we have a variety of composting materials that we can put in. We have some manure, some corn stalks, corn leaves, we have some grass cuttings. This is called mushroom bokah. And here we have some leftover vegetables. So the idea of composting is that we want to try to input as many organic waste as we can, compost it, and then you can recycle that nutrients back onto the field. So it really depends on what you have on your farm. If you have more leaf cuttings, you can get more leaf cuttings. You have more vegetable waste, you just use all the vegetable waste that you can. If can, normally we will have a CN ratio in order to get an effective composting process. So if you add too much leaf cuttings, there'll be more carbon here. So if possible, you might want to add some nitrogen in terms of manure, so you can balance that out, then you can compost it more efficiently. First, we'll mix everything up together, then I'll show you how we maintain the moisture for proper composting so that you can get enough oxygen into the compost pile to have an aerobic process. Okay, so here we're trying to mix all the components together. Oh yes, it's best if you can get all your components like your leaf cuttings to a smaller particle size so that it'll be easier for the composting process. If you have long cuttings, it'll be harder for it to compost, and plus it won't retain so much moisture. So with the smaller particles, it will layer them nicely so that everything is just compacted well enough. Well, this is a showcase pile. Basically, in a farm setting, we want to get the pile as high as 3 feet, like the one over there. So that would be a good basis in order to give it a sufficient amount of volume for the heat to generate. So this is a typical compost pile, the size of the compost pile that you want to have in order for it to generate enough heat for the microbial action. Of course, especially if you're using grass cuttings or any seeds that could have fallen into the compost pile, you want the compost pile to heat up to at least 60 degrees, so it at least eliminates all the weeds that will have in your pile. So upon application, you won't have weeds growing all around your farm. Alright, so coming back to the moisture component of the compost pile, as you can see here, it's still quite dry. So one way to verify whether your compost pile has enough moisture is you can do a squeeze test. So we squeeze it really hard, and if there's nothing coming out, it's okay. But for this, you can see my hands are all wet. This is still okay. But of course, you want this to be your entire pile. So make sure that the pile is moisture enough and it's not dry and it's not too wet. Here we are going to activate our composting microbes for the composting process over here. So basically the ratio would be 10% of the entire volume of the pile. So let's just say here you agak-agak 50 liters. So you put 5 liters of water here. You add in about half a spade of microbes, and then you add in about equal portions of molasses. So it's agak-agak lah. Okay, so what you do is that you stir it. Normally, you have to leave this for 1 to 2 days to let the microbes activate first to grow out, then you apply to the pile. Averagely, you want to stir this as many times a day as you can, probably 3 times if possible. If not, once a day is okay. If you stir lesser, then maybe you want to grow it out longer, so you can leave it for 2 to 3 days if you're not stirring it very often. Because all these microbes are all aerobic microbes, means they always need oxygen. So your stirring process actually creates the oxygen inside the water. So also coming back to the dosage, you don't want to add too much water into the pile. It's because too much moisture will create an anaerobic pile, which means there's not enough oxygen. So when there's not enough oxygen in the pile, it creates all this smelly, foul smell, and the pile will not break down properly. Okay, so two days later with our activated microbes. So now what we're going to do is to apply the entire thing all over the top. Make sure to get as much as possible. After that, we're going to mix it thoroughly so that all the components of the pile will get the microbes. Okay, so it's okay to spread it out a little bit when you do the mixing, but after that, at the end of the day, you want to push it back together so that the pile has sufficient volume in order to generate the heat. So that's it for the composting building process. what you need to do now is that we will check daily. You need to make sure whether there's enough water. If it's on the outdoors and there's rain, it's okay. Don't have to add any more water. And every 5 to 7 days, you want to turn the pile in order to have oxygen going to the bottom layers of the pile. Because now, the top layer will have all the oxygen, but underneath won't have so much. So as you turn the process, you will get more even composting process. So normally we will say for composting it will be about 45 to 60 days in order to get a really nice compost. And at the end of the day, we want it look something like this. So it has to be dark brown to black, and it will have a earthy odor when you smell it. So that's when you know your compost is done. Then you can start applying it to your field. So that's all from me.